And we're back. I'm Joe Spina, and this is Frankly Speaking. Paul, my co-host, he's off doing whatever he's doing. He's not here, but I have someone who's comparable, Darren Cyr, who happens to be the council president. Welcome.
Thank you, Joe.
And congratulations for re-election.
Thank you.
Folks, if you don't know, Brian is our backup. Unfortunately, we weren't able to utilize his talent because he was out there running for office, and that would have been considered whatever it would be considered.
Not kosher.
That's it. Truth is our mission, you know.
Yep.
Rally our realm, set as we see it, and frankly as well. Frankly Joe, let's get that up there. In 1667, John Milton published his epic poem, Paradise Lost, about the fall of man, with the intent to justify the ways of God to men. On December 4th, in 2017, the Lynn item, epic headline read, Paradise Lost for this Lynn Gliss Van Ryder. An unfortunate tale for sure, but hardly on the scale of Milton's epic. Not all news is equal. Some news is barely news, which brings me to wondering why Paradise Lost for Lynn Gliss Ryder was so prominently featured. Then I flipped the page, read a story that had resemblance, or had no resemblance actually, to the headline, which made me wonder more. I guess what I'm saying out there is there's news and there's news. Now, how is it? I mean, it's unfortunate some guy got mistreated, but they've made a big issue. It's got Paul smoking mad, and if he were here, it'd be coming out of his nose and his ears. So, folks, next week Paul will hear the answer. He's a big boy, he can handle it himself. But you know what? I don't blame him for being upset. I mean, they took a, in my view, a cheap shot. They do 600,000 rides a year, Darren.
Yep. They do a great job.
600,000. One screw up?
Yeah. I agree. Gliss is one of the good things that we have in the city. Paul's been running it for a few years. I believe he's always done a good job. I think Gliss, his goal is to take care of the seniors in the city and the handicap, and I believe they do an unbelievable job. So, like you said, Joe, sometimes one little mistake doesn't constitute.
To elevate it to the top and with the banner headline, I mean, that's the point. I mean, we have an opioid crisis going on. You get what I mean? We got some serious issues going on.
Yep.
And to elevate that, kind of troubling.
Slow day.
Yeah.
Slow news day.
Hum. This is hum. Let's hum it up there. Argue all you want. Here's the reality. Despite all the doom and gloom and opposition from Representative Moulton and Senator Warren and the entire Democratic delegation, when the Republican tax package is enacted, the average Lynn family will realize more than a $400 drop in their federal tax bill, only to be gobbled up by a property tax increase come April 1st. Now, who's the fool? I voted for Donald Trump. You like that one? Now, tell me about this. There's a lot of confusion. We had, in our commentaries, folks believed that they had to sign up yesterday, or I'm sorry, on December 4th, in order to receive consideration for an abatement.
Not until the tax bills come out. You'll have, actually, I believe it's until February.
It is?
I believe it's February, 21 days. But before you go down there and you want to find out for sure, call 598-4000. You can ask for the assessor's office, or you can ask for the city council office. Terry and Lisa work in my office. They'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
I want you to look into that camera there when you're speaking to the audience,
Okay.
because that great profile of yours comes across better.
Okay.
But that's great information. So as far as you understand, you're the council president now.
Right.
It's going to be February at the latest, or earliest.
I believe it's the same as every year, so
So they'll be able to go on, they can go on the website also, can they not?
They can go on the website, but what you're asking for is for them to come out and reassess the value of your property. Another way
yeah, good point.
Another way you can do that is you can bring a real estate company in and have them do what they call a comp. And they can go and do 3 different houses in the area that are comparable to your house, see what they've sold for, and you got to be careful because the way the market is today, the houses
Some are up,
yeah, a lot. The property. That's why the property values are going up.
Well, they claim it's a 9.3% increase, roughly, okay, over last year, the last. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I was comping about this prior to the election when I don't believe, I don't know whether you and I talked about it before, probably, where in effect they dropped the rate, but said, wait a minute, the property values went up. So effectively, it was a tax increase.
Right, well, they just did it in Swampscott too.
They dropped it, actually Swampscott dropped.
Dropped it, but their taxes are gonna probably go up because their property values went up, so that's.
Well, yeah, but they're claiming, ironically, for
I
the
know.
first, so you're saying they're playing a shell game.
Right, and that's basically what's going on everywhere. I mean, you know, if, let's say your house was worth $300,000 last year, but today it's worth $375,000, and we dropped the rate by 50 cents, you know.
You're gonna pay more.
You're gonna pay more in the long run, and that's what's going on. People say Peabody's tax rate is lower than Lynn, and they're paying less taxes. Not true. You take your house, you bring it over into Peabody, and that $300,000 home is probably worth $400,000 over in Peabody. So you're paying more in the long run.
I want to get to a subject that you're very passionate about, and that's schools, building schools. Before we went on air, you mentioned 2 schools, and I was going to ask you about I mean, you have a vision for where you want to see the city go over the next decade or so, right? I mean, and as council president, you know, the truth of the matter is you control an agenda.
Yep.
What is the status? There's 2 schools that need to be built because of capacity problems.
Yep.
We can argue with it. But the money's not there.
Right. It's not.
So what are you going to do?
Well, we're going to have to start informing the public a little better than we did before, educate them, show them what the need is, what the benefits are from having the 2 new schools. There's one area of the city where the kids are completely neglected, and that's down in West Lynn, around Lynn Tech area, where since the early 1900s, the state and all the studies have shown that we need to build a middle school down there closer to where those kids live, and we haven't done it. One of the things that we're talking about doing is working with you and Lynn Cam to do a weekly or a bi-weekly show.
That'd be a great idea.
To keep everybody more informed as to what's going on. We had, over the course of probably 2 years, weekly meetings with a committee that was set up to look at the 2 schools that we had just previously voted against or opposed to. But the public really wasn't aware of the amount of work that went into that and what went on in the meetings. They're not aware of how the sites were really picked. And there was so much controversy over the location that I think that kind of overrode.
But let me interject something here, Darren. I think it was greater than that. I think what had to be explained that wasn't, and then when people figured it out, it was a death blow.
Yep.
You needed to man a new school.
You
needed to man a new school. You were building an extra school.
Yep.
And in
2
so
new
doing,
schools.
no, you're building one, replacing Pickering.
Right.
But you were adding another school down on that Westland site that you're talking about around Commercial Street, scoped out at about 1,000 students, which meant that you had to man it with teachers, administrators, and the rest of it. That was the big ticket item, not the building of the school.
Yep.
It was the extra personnel that you would have to hire in order to man the school. We, or you, and the folks got to explain to the public about that issue and what it means, and they might think about it. You know, the only way it can happen is if we raise property taxes, and nobody is in the mood to have their property taxes go up.
Well, and I'll touch on the taxes first. What we would do is, and what we were going to do, it would have cost the average homeowner roughly around $200 more a year, give or take, either way. That money would have gone towards the pay down of the school. That's the only place that money couldn't go in the general fund or anywhere else. Once the schools were paid down, that $200...
For the 2 schools?
For the 2 schools.
Okay.
That $200 would be eliminated off your taxes. Depending on the amount of time, it would be anywhere from 18 to roughly 25 years, and I'm trying to be conservative, and I'm trying to give you a little bit more. But it probably would have been closer to around 20 years is what that $200 a year added on to your taxes, which would have been about $50 more per tax bill. As for manning the school, right now, our average classroom is over 35 kids. So you as a teacher know how hard it is to educate kids in that type of environment.
Particularly with the attitude changes that have taken place.
Yep.
When I was a young puppy teaching, 35 kids was a piece of cake.
Right.
Because the discipline at home and the value systems that they were brought up with are much different than today.
Right, and the
today,
discipline
a
in
teacher
the
will look at you and
classroom as
use an
well.
expletive. You know that,
Right,
don't you?
right. Well, I agree.
Yeah.
Plus the discipline in the classroom and the consequences for your actions. So you need a smaller classroom, but what you also need is, and you were at Marshall, you told me
Yesterday.
today, that facility, right when you walk into that building, whether you're a kid, going to learn, a student, you want to start learning the moment you walk in there. If you're a teacher, the moment you walk in there, you want to start teaching because that's the environment of the building.
Yeah, I mean, the atmospherics are sensational.
It's
no
unbelievable.
question.
You walk into any lab, you walk into any music room, you walk into the math or the English rooms, you walk into home ec, you go into where the media room is. I would say that it might
Oh,
even
it's
be
impressive.
a
It's
little
impressive,
step
yeah.
up than here. I mean, it's just such a building, and it's used right now. The rest of the state comes in and takes a look at it. When they're going to build a school in their city or town in Massachusetts, they come to Lynn, and they look and see what we did. Swampscott came to Lynn to look to see how we built our school.
What do you think I heard from the teachers at the school when I was there? It's over capacity.
Right.
It's already reached its capacity levels. It was scoped out for $1,000, wasn't it?
1,300.
And it's over 13
Right.
already.
When we applied for the state to give us the money to build that school, originally they approved it for 800. So I sat on the committee along with Buzzy and Kathy Latham and a few other people, and we knew that by the time the school was built, that the student population would be a lot higher than 800. So what we actually did was we brought the State Education Board into the area and went through the neighborhood and we showed them how densely populated it was. So we were hoping for 15. We got 13,
Hey.
which was 500 more than what they were going to give us.
And on that note, we have to take a little break. We'll be back with Council President Darren Cyr in a moment or two.
I'm not doing.
Calls me googly eyes.
You know you're beautiful, right? You know that?
Even you're beautiful. I got bullied for wearing glasses. Share if you're against bullying.
We put it out there, just took off. 3 million people have shared this post. Don't let bullies get you down. I stand with you. My whole family's wearing glasses. I wear glasses and I'm proud.
I even have the army on my team.
All the kind comments brought my child joy. I don't feel thank you is enough.
That's
And we're back with the Honorable Darren Cyr, Council President, talking about a couple of new schools that didn't make it last time around, but you're still going to go, going to try to push it through over the next year or so?
We need to.
Necessary.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, we're the third largest school population in the state, over 17,000 kids.
Let's talk about that. I have a real problem with that.
Yep.
And see if you can follow me. Quincy, our sister city, roughly 92,000. Comparable to us.
Yep,
They have 9,700 students.
yep.
We're almost double them in student population. Now, each year, you mentioned Kathy Latham, superintendent of schools. I have to tell you, she's got to be a miracle worker. She's picking up 300 to 350 students per year, unannounced. Doesn't know, can't plan it. But
Sometimes
it's happening.
more, right.
And sometimes more, right. I'm being conservative.
Yep.
Their per pupil cost, listen to this, folks, the per pupil cost in the city of Lynn is $13,600. which is very modest if you compare that to the surrounding communities, Darren.
Right.
Swampscott 15, Salem is at 17,000 per pupil. So we're doing a marvelous job of keeping the cost factors down. We're getting swamped with folks coming in from Central America, and I'm not trying to knock it, but something's got to be done to spread the cost better.
Right. Well, there's a lot you can talk about, and what they do with those kids, and a lot of them can't speak English.
Tell me about it.
And some of them that come in, you know, they're 14, 15 years old, but they only had a 5th grade education. So they're put into grades, and by the state, we're required to make sure that they pass the MCAS the year they come into the system.
You're looking at the MCAS tutor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and I know exactly what you're talking about.
So, and that's a pretty tough thing. And then you take a look at, and I'm not here to talk about charter schools, but they're not held to the same standards as we are. So not only do we get those kids that come back in, that come from Latin America, and we got, I believe it was over 80 kids that came in from the hurricane in Puerto Rico.
That's
that we weren't
correct.
expecting this year. But also, if kids that go into KIP aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, living up to their so-called standards, they kick them back into our system.
And they don't return the money.
And they don't return the money.
That look,
So
that's,
if you got
go
15
ahead.
or 20 kids that they're sending back, which I
That's-
believe the
that's a
number's a
price.
lot more,
Yeah.
that's a price. So, and right now, they're taking over I believe it's $14 million a year out of our school budget
Well,
right now.
I'm going to argue that's a zero-sum thing. The bad part is because either way, you're going to have to lay that money. It's just the money follows the
Right.
student. Where you're correct is that if that student is at KIP Academy for 3 days,
Right.
and they pick up 13,600 and goes back to lending and they keep the 13,006.
Right.
That is categorically wrong. Can't
Right.
happen.
They don't have special education as
No,
the
they
Lynn
don't.
schools do.
And they can throw people out.
And they can throw people out. We don't have that privilege, and they don't have to take the MCAS there. But the main goal, to be honest with you, Joe, is that there is such a need for these 2 new schools. And when you said to me a little earlier that I had a vision for the next 10 years, my vision is for the next 75. And I've talked with the mayor, the new mayor coming in, and I want my great-grandkids to want to live in this city. I want it to be such a place where it was, and we're getting there, but I don't want to just think about tomorrow or next year. I want to think about 75 or 100 years down the road. So we need to build these schools to educate our kids, to bring in more people that want to come here and live.
Let me ask you this. I have said many times on this show that our problem in Lynn, and you can't solve your fiscal problem in the city unless you take care of the school budget.
Right.
That's the big eater.
Yep.
That's the hungry beast,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Insofar as Lynn is getting a disproportionate amount of students from around the world with our open borders policy, I've been opposed to sanctuary cities from the point of view that it's a magnet that attracts and exacerbates the problem.
Yep.
So I'm opposed to that sanctuary city, and I hope you folks have learned how the downside after what happened at that trial out there in San Francisco that was ludicrous. The 2 worst trials in the history of the United States, O.J. Simpson and the last one, both in California. So anybody who listens to California is out of their mind. So let me get back to the key point. We need a delegation to the state and to the federal government that says, hey, you got to help a city like Lynn out. Send the dollars with the students. Am I saying anything out of line here?
Nope. You do?
That's not happening right now.
Nope.
That's the key, isn't it?
Right.
Either that or spread them to Revere, to Swampscott, to Marblehead, and Saugus, all around us, because it's not happening.
Right.
The flood it's like water seeks its the least resistance. The least resistance is the city of Lynn right now. And you said something before we went on air, very telling, because it's connected. 35% of our stock, quote unquote, is subsidized housing.
Right. One of the issues, and it's hard to say this without offending someone, but
Truth should never offend anybody.
and you're right. And there's so many nonprofit groups and organizations that are in Lynn that do help out people, and they do a good job. But the problem I see is that they're not really getting people out of those services. They keep them in those services so they can keep collecting the money. My goal would be, if I was running a nonprofit group or organization, to try to help these people to either A, find jobs or housing, or get them set up so they can take care of themselves. The reason we get so many people that are coming into our area is because we have so many nonprofit groups. None of them pay taxes.
Which causes the problem. We have to get to another break. Would you believe that? I mean, you're really moving us along. Hold that thought. We'll be back shortly.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But you probably won't. You're busy. Kids, work, show coming back in 48 seconds. So let's do this now. Hold up one finger if you're a man, women, 0. 3 more fingers if you're over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40. If you're not sure, keep in mind you're sitting on a couch right now, so 1 more finger if you're not very active. 1 finger if yes, 0 if no. 1 yes, 0 no. Next, find the body type that looks most like you and hold up that many fingers while I look around awkwardly. And that's it. If you're holding up 5 fingers or more, you probably have prediabetes. Sorry to be so blunt, but hey, you're busy. Just go to the site.
And we're back with Council President Darren Cyr, who never misses an opportunity to tell the truth, which is kind of refreshing for a politician, you know? I must tell you, impressive thing. I want to move, we talked about housing, so what's that word that we talk about when you make that move?
Segue.
That's it. And you went to Tech.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty bright guy.
Thank you.
The change of address is taking place. I don't know if it's a good idea or I don't know if it's a bad idea, but Pedro's going to throw it up there. And that is that the Lynn Housing Court is no longer going to be in Lynn. It's on its way to Salem. I mean, what is it about Salem that takes our hospitals, Lynn Housing, and the rest of it? I'm trying to figure this one all out.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't.
They take all the good things that
Yeah.
bring jobs over there in their community.
Over in Salem.
Yep, and they just send back all the problems and the issues. It's just, you know, I get it about condensing down departments and things like that, trying to save money. There's a reason why it was put here in Lynn, and there was a need, and the need is still here for it to stay here. It's going to cause problems for the people of the city. The people that need those services, they don't have cars.
Well,
they
what's
need
their
public
rationale for leaving to start with that? I'm not even sure about it.
I think
they
it's
said something about capacity.
Yeah, and I think it's also about trying to centralize the thing more. So put everything one-stop shopping. That's what they're doing with the hospital, one-stop shopping. That if you come into Union Hospital because you're sick,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10 you're going to be sent over to Salem because they don't have the facilities here or the doctors to take care of the illness. So, and it's cheaper for them to put everything in one location and make us go to them rather than them bringing the services to us.
Union Hospital's a gorgeous campus.
Yep, wonderful.
And far more attractive and far more, I would consider,
Yep.
you know, if I was sick, I'd rather be at Union Hospital trying to recover with the scenery, with a little brook going by, than looking out the window at Salem Hospital at, you know, depression.
Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't get out of Shaughnessy that fast. But at Union Hospital, at least there's some trees and a few chipmunks to keep you happy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't understand it.
I think a lot of it has to do with the cost of insurance, to be honest with you.
Cost of insurance?
Yep. The cost to provide medical care is just skyrocketed to the point. And Partners is the only insurer that is a profit insurer. They make
For profit?
for profit. Everyone else is not supposed to be, even though they do make a profit. But Partners is in the business of making money, and I believe it was costing them $30 million a year that they were losing to stay here in Lynn, and it made sense for them to move over there. They're still working with us. They still want to put a all-care an emergency care unit in there.
Well, they shoot the highway.
Yep.
I mean, if you get an accident on Route 1,
Yep.
which is likely, or 128, you don't have the time if you're in a trauma situation to drive through Lynn to get to Salem.
Right.
So you should have a trauma center. That for sure where Union Hospital is.
It covers Linfield, Saugus, Revere, covers parts of Peabody, parts of
Right.
even Salem.
Exactly.
It's closer, you know, for them to go there.
But there is no hospital in that compressed area that could work as a trauma center unless they want to push it up on the North Shore, you know, shopping center or whatever. But I
Right.
don't know.
Peabody.
You know, sometimes I don't know what makes sense or not. I want to do a look-alike. This is unbelievable. So if we can throw that look-alike up there. Now, there's a fellow named Andrew Jackson. You see him up there? Now, does he or does he not look like somebody that you served with?
Mr. Cahill.
Does he or doesn't he? I mean,
He does.
doesn't it? I mean, I
He
saw this.
could
I
even
said,
be his ancestor. I don't know.
and that's what I'm wondering. Now, actually, his wife is much more attractive than Rachel.
A lot more attractive. She is.
And a wonderful girl. But I was taking a look at this and I said, can you imagine Danny Kaye and Andrew Jackson, huh? Both tall, rugged guys, huh? What can I tell you?
Probably carries a gun in his holster.
But people don't know that your ancestor was the strongest man in the world ever.
Right.
Hercules. What was his name again? It was Cyr, I know
Cyr,
that. It was up
yep.
in Lowell,
No, it was up in Canada.
but he went to Lowell.
Yeah, he moved down to Lowell to work
Tell
in
the
the
folks some of the
factories.
feats that he pulled off. But this is amazing.
Yeah. I believe there was 18 men on a platform. He lifted up draft tosses. He'd lift up one with each hand. Barbells. I mean, thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
And to this day, nobody's matched a
They
lot of
said
his records.
his mother was 250, about
Yeah.
6'4", 250.
Yeah, he was about my height, but his shoulders were out to there.
Yeah.
He had a pot belly. Strong men back then weren't like strong men today.
Not me. I have a pot belly, but I'm not that strong. So, among other things. If you think, watch this one, Pedro, if you think politics has become a nasty game, you better think again. No, that's not it. That's things you don't need to know, which is what we're going to do after. This is what we're going to do first. Before that, before chewing gum, we're going to do, see the dastardly guy there with the cartoonish guy, Mr. Dastardly? See if we can get him up there. Yeah. If you think politics has become a nasty game, think again. The election of 1800, John Adams versus Thomas Jefferson was a rematch. Adams was described, listen to this one, as the hideous hermaphroditic character, which means he was both male and female, right? Which was neither the force or firmness of a man, nor the gentleness or the sensibility of a woman. Ouch! I mean, that's what they'd said. And by the way, John Adams put together the Alien Sedition Act. If you want to talk about the Logan Act, all this stuff they're talking about today, which you couldn't speak. If I said something about you as a council president, I'd be in the Lynn jail. You know, I mean, that was the Alien Sedition Act. Well, someone mentioned that Adams had a larger than normal posterior. He didn't like that. Put him in jail. Yeah. And by the way, you know the guy that wrote this thing about him being a character that was neither firm nor gentle? He was put in jail under the Alien Sedition Act, and when Jefferson was elected, freed him up. In the election of 1828, this is John Adams' son, John Quincy Adams, they accused Andrew Jackson, the one that looks like Danny Kaye, they accused him and his wife of being polygamist, because in those days, the court systems were kind of slow, and the official papers hadn't gone through, and they got married, and that was it. So they vilified him as her being an adulteress, and she died very shortly after she got elected. He never forgave people. He thought that they caused her death. On top of it, listen to this about your mother. Jackson's mother was caricatured, this is in an election, as a common prostitute for the benefit of the English Navy. I mean, that's nasty.
Wicked bad.
Jackson was called, listen to this one, a murderer, a traitor, and mentally unstable. Does that sound familiar?
And a pirate.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Go to the next one there. Not to be outdone.
Adams was called a pimp. As minister to Russia, Adams allegedly provided the Tsar some female companionship. Russian collusion?
Back then. What else we got here? In
the-
1884, this is a beauty.
In the
Cleveland-
election of 1884, Cleveland versus Blaine. Mama, where's my pal? Gone to the White House. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, no, this is, folks, they actually chanted this on the streets. They would say, Mama, where's my pa? Now, the reason for this being is Grover Cleveland sired an illegitimate child 10 years earlier. So, you know, we got dirt on him now.
Yeah.
You know, don't forget, this is Victorian era, right? And so they kept chanting, Mama, where's my pa? What happens? He wins a very narrow election against Blaine. You know, Blaine, the liar from Maine. That's what they used on that one, rhyming. So afterwards, they would chant, Mama, where's my pa? And the Grover Cleveland guys would say, gone to the White House, ha ha ha. Isn't that something? And they talk about today, who knows? Things you don't need to know. How about this one? Are you ready? I'm tired. You do reading down.
You burn more calories sleeping than you do watching television.
Is that true?
I don't believe it.
Apparently.
Well, maybe if you're in a dream or something, in a nightmare.
All right, what's the next one?
If you believe that you're truly one in a million, there are still approximately 7,184 more people out there just like you.
That's amazing when you think of it, because the population of the world is 7 billion or so.
Yep.
So if you're not alone, that's a big number, 7,184. After this break, we're going to put it all up there for you, so stay tuned.
I want a place I can enjoy every day,
where my son can play outside.
that inspires me. Some places have the power to move us. And even transform us. This is the power of place. The power of parks and open spaces to transform whole communities by connecting us to nature, to each other, and to ourselves. This is the work of the Trust for Public Land. At a time when many of us are spending more time online than outdoors, we're putting nature within reach of every person in America. Help us create the power of place and healthier, happier communities nationwide.
And back with things that you really don't need to know. And Pedro, let's put that up there. While we're waiting for that to come up, you mentioned that there were X amount of characteristics that you can resemble. It's a big number, but it really reduces down. Would you explain that to the folks out there?
Well, there's 17 different variations of each person's characteristics,
Right.
their face. But there's actually only 15 overall. So there can be 17 variations of what you look like. And if you ever heard the expression, geez, I just saw a guy who looks just like you, or do you have a brother? So there's 17 different variations of your face, but when you break it down, there's really only 15 different characterizations
I get you, yeah.
of all the people in the world. So
But isn't it phenomenal that
black, white, yellow, green, it doesn't matter. So
I
we're
didn't
all
think
more
about that.
alike than what people really think.
Interesting. So in this world, folks, in this world, 1 in a million, there's 7,184 of you. That's a lot. So here we
I
go.
mean, there's 7,184 of my wives out there.
Of you, of Councilor Cyr, Council President Cyr. There are more possible iterations of the game of chess than there are atoms in the known universe. That's mind-blowing. I never could have figured that one out. Imagine those geniuses to play that game. Your turn.
The world's oldest piece of chewing gum is over 9,000 years old. I think
The one
I'm
you're
chewing
chewing
it.
is it 9,000
No,
years old?
it feels like it. So
We thought about it, so you have to do chewing gum number 2.
chewing gum will cut an onion while you keep you from crying.
I never
Sorry.
knew that. You know that? When you chop onions, chew gum.
Well, if you chop the onion from the other end, it'll keep you from crying too. Do you know that?
You learn a lot here, folks. You learn a lot on this show. 95% of the people text things they would never say in person. I buy that one.
Oh, 100%.
I never knew this. Did you know this about celery?
Celery has it has negative calories.
Yeah.
It takes more calories to eat.
Yeah.
No.
I never knew about that. Folks, think about that. Eat celery, lose weight. It takes more energy to chew the celery and digest it than the amount of calories in celery.
So all you have to do is eat celery and sleep.
That's it. And you look. You know something? You are a smart fella. The two of them. Most people are allergic to cow's milk than any other food. More
believe
people are.
that.
I buy that. That's
I do
lactose
too.
intolerant, right?
Yep.
So we have to get to our comments here. And where are they? Do you have them? You know, we got some really decent comments.
The emails?
And one of them had to do what we were talking about earlier. It had to do with the abatement, or you said in February, and it was a mix-up. You have it there, don't you?
Yep.
So, I don't know, can we check it up there, or is it coming up? It had to do with, on our show last week, we mentioned they had to go to a website by December 4th in order to contest whatever the assumed value of your house was going to be. You're saying that's incorrect. In fact, they did. They said it was a mistake.
Right.
An error. So explain to the folks what they have to do and can do.
Well, I believe it's all that what you have to do is within so many days of getting your January bill, go to City Hall and ask them to come and do a reassess value of your property. But the best way to do it without involving them in the beginning, and you only have a certain period of time to do it, as long as you notify them that you want to have it done, that the time that you have won't run out. But you can call my office or the city solicitor's office and ask them what the actual time is. But what I would really do, if it was me, and I thought that my taxes were way too high, is I'd go to a real estate person and have them do a comp. And they'll come out, take a look at your property.
So they do an assessment on your property?
They'll do an assessment on your property by
Right.
going, looking at 3 other properties in your general neighborhood, especially ones that have just sold recently.
Yes.
And they'll compare that to your house. So, but the problem is the way the market is right now, and everybody's value is going up. And the reason why everyone's value is going up is because of the high sale of the homes. So,
Yeah, it's a catch-22.
right.
But the net bottom line is that as of April 1st, it's not going to be April Fool's Day, it's going to be tax increase day.
Right.
No way around it, right? So, folks, I don't know if it's going to be 9%. Last time I got clipped for about 400.
Yep.
That's under Proposition 2.5. So that's a fallacious argument. The proper 2.5 is keeping things down because there's a thing called fair market value
Right.
that's being defined as who knows what.
Yep.
And Malcolm gets to that. Malcolm, I have to read this because Malcolm Mitchell, who's very, very astute. Malcolm, you know why you're so astute? Because you say you really enjoyed our latest show. And I really enjoy you saying that you enjoyed our latest show. And I hope you enjoy this show as much as our latest show, particularly when we have Darren Cyr here. That rhymes. As for your new backdrop, as you can see, it's nice, but needs a little tweaking. Oh, and we tweaked it this week. So, there was something about Paul Crowley. I don't know if you know this. People thought he might be considering running for as an independent,
Yep.
and he thought it would be a great idea if he did that. I think I couldn't take the paid loss.
I couldn't either.
You know, I mean, be honest with you, right?
Yep, yep.
I mean, you have to be Cincinnatus, you know, to do that.
Yep.
And I'm not. I'm still, folks, I'm still grinding out at school. I'm approaching senior citizenhood, and I'm still grinding out a few bucks, substituting here, there, and tutoring. So that's that part. Anyway, as for property tax in Lynn and other cities and towns, it is totally unfair and regressive way to fund the operation of local government. That's an interesting point. So I would just stay with that. Malcolm makes a good point. It is regressive, isn't it?
It is. Yep.
You know, think about it. Now, you tried the meal tax, which doesn't generate enough cash.
750
Maximum.
to $1 million.
Yeah. And I mentioned, and everybody went bonkers on me, they said, how can you be a conservative Republican? But my point being is the only place you can get money really is from an income tax.
Right.
So I thought a 1% income tax wouldn't break the bank, a penny on the dollar, for everybody. Oh, they throw darts at me. They're going to boil me in acid, you know, sulfuric acid at that. But ideally, a 1% tax on people deriving income from the city of Lynn. I would say deriving income from the city of Lynn, working in the city of Lynn, not outside. That would solve our problem. If you took 1% of the salary of municipal employees, that would be a couple $1 million a year easily, wouldn't it? We probably lay out over $200 million in salary. School department's about
150 plus.
in salaries and police and this.
But that's everything. That's
Right.
the upkeep.
Well, I understand that, but the point being is that really and truly, we have to understand where we're going. Now, fortunately, you're getting $400 minimum in federal tax break, so you should be supportive of the tax plan that's being proposed, right? It actually benefits the average person in the city of Lynn. Now, I don't understand, why would Moulton and why would Elizabeth Warren, they're being disingenuous, strictly political, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. And that's not the way to run a ship.
Right.
If someone has a good idea, and trust me, if Moulton or Elizabeth Warren came up with a good idea, I'd be right behind them, 100%.
Yep.
Look, we have a new mayor coming in, you mentioned it. And good luck to him. He's got some ideas that I'm not necessarily in line with.
Right.
But I know that he's an honorable man, and I know that he's got the best interest of the city at heart.
Right.
He'll sit down with you, because he's going to have to,
Yep.
and try. He's not he's not an executive.
Right.
He's used to the legislative process. You're going to have to guide him onto what the needs of the city of Lynn are, along with the other councils. You've got to work together, correct?
Yep. I can tell you this, Joe, that we've already had a dozen meetings with him. He's very, very smart person, as Judy was. He knows the situation we're in, and I really think that he's ready for it. And, you know,
Better be.
he has the same vision that I have and some of the other councilors to be preparing for the next 100 years down the road.
Absolutely. That's the only way to think.
And I also want to say that, because I haven't had the chance to do this publicly, that Judy did a great job. I really started to have a good working relationship with her, and the council did in the past year. She's going to be missed, and but I guess the citizens wanted some change, and it's time to move on.
Hey, that's life.
Yep.
I mean, and I'm glad to see that you're respectful enough to give her kudos,
Yep.
which she deserves, and you're respectful enough to understand that the fellow who's coming in, Tom, again, congratulations to you, Tom, coming in, he's going to work with you, and you're going to work as hard as you can to make him successful.
Yep.
And so am I.
Yep.
What vested interest do I have in him failing?
Right.
That's
and
crazy.
you can ask anybody that knows Tom and myself, whenever we're together in a room and we start discussing politics, he's over here and I'm over there. But at the end of the day, we both realize that everything we do is for the best of the community. And that's that. So, you know, we both have good ideas. I think we have a council that's unbelievable. Buzzy Barton and myself have met with him
Great guy.
a dozen times, as I said.
You know what I have to do? I have to caution you that we're out of time. We need you back again. I thank you for being here. Folks, have a great week.
Thank you, Joe.
Did a nice show.